Hello, everyone. It's Lisa Norell. Welcome to our live stream here on July 3rd, 2020. It's hard to believe that we actually are getting ready for the long weekend. I'm definitely ready. I'm wearing summer gear because here in Northern Virginia, it is going to be 96 degrees today. So what are we going to cover today? Well, I've chosen, because of the sheer velocity and volume of information that's coming at all of us, I want to use this time to talk about a topic that many of my clients are asking me about, which is how does mindfulness play a role today in our daily lives? And given that the pandemic has forced us to really take a pause, what can we do in order to adapt and maybe learn from mindfulness, practice some mindfulness habits in order to just simply be a little bit more calm and a little bit more focused? So one of the things I want to first do is, as I welcome people here to the live stream, tell you something I believe. And what I believe is that the dream of being a mindful and purpose-driven marketer is alive and well. It's about not only improving your customers' lives and creating jobs and changing the world, it's also about improving your own life. And it's possible when you have the right tools, the right mindset, and the right ideal community, your reference group, as I call it. So I wanted you to know about kind of what I believe in and the stake in the ground that I actually put here as the founder of Energized Growth. Because some of the things you'll hear from me today, they may not sit well with you, some will. And I invite you to choose what sits well for you. So with that, let's get started. Let's go back a couple of decades when I was actually a student and I was learning to get my pilot's license. And I remember this 280-mile solo flight. The flight was my first cross-country flight. I started in Stratford, Connecticut, and I was supposed to fly to a town called Concord, New Hampshire. This was well before GPS, so I had all of my sectional charts out. I had everything prepared. I had perfect weather forecast, blue skies, and calm air. So I was very excited. And as I crossed this state border from Connecticut, when I was out just leaving the state and I was crossing into New Hampshire, something strange happened. My plane was tracking towards an airport, but it wasn't the Concord airport. It was a very unfamiliar airport that had a couple of runways. And I thought, okay, something is going on here. I'm not really sure, but this is not familiar to me. I'm not exactly sure what to do, but I looked on the map a couple of times and realized, oh my gosh, I am headed towards a highly controlled airport known as Manchester. And if I were to get out of, land the plane, most likely a couple of armed guards would greet me. So I had lost my sense of direction, and for a moment, my plans were confusing. Right now, during the moment of pandemic protests, how many of you feel like all of your best laid plans just aren't working? All of your approaches to how you lead your teams are failing. How you design your day is not productive anymore. How many of you just feel like you're no longer the captain of your own flight? Well, if you're being honest with me, most of us are probably going to say, not so much. Things are not going as I had hoped. So what I want to share with you and suggest is that there are some lessons we can learn from mindfulness in order to help you just be a little bit more calm and focused. And for those of you that are interested in learning more, or you need to scoot out for the holiday weekend, just know that you can always learn more in my book, The Mindful Marketer, or just visit themindfulmarketer.com/bonus, and you can get a whole bunch of free resources there. So what do I mean by mindfulness? Mindfulness is a used and abused term. I've known that it's been overused in a lot of communities, but I like and I believe in very simple definitions. So think of mindfulness as non-judgmental awareness in the present moment. Again, non-judgmental present moment awareness is pretty much the definition of mindfulness. So the reason that I was very excited about studying mindfulness was because it was a form of survival for me. When September 11th happened, I was going through a career crisis. I was working for a large billion-dollar software company, and they had acquired the consulting firm I was working for. And I have to tell you, I was not enjoying myself. I didn't align with the culture. Nothing I tried was working. The old methods of leading and selling and marketing just didn't land so well. So I had to try some new approaches. And I hired a coach, and he led mindfulness courses on primarily meditation. And I then found that I was able to separate my emotions from my thoughts. I was able to step back and observe how I was feeling both physically and emotionally. And I was able to be a little bit more gentle on myself, a little more compassionate about how I was feeling or what experiences I was having. So it's really been a lifesaver for me. One of the things mindfulness is not, and by the way, mindfulness comes in all different flavors. It's some people practice yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation. There are many, many flavors of mindfulness, and people can discover the one that works for them. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about the benefits and kind of what's underneath the whole benefits and advantages of mindfulness as it relates to leading people and communicating with your stakeholders. I want to kind of now bridge between the generic concept of mindfulness and then some ways you can operate in the world and with your teams in order to get the most out of the mindfulness practices. The first quality, and these are things that I've learned, and then I'm going to give you examples of leaders and marketing executives who are mindfulness practitioners and apply some of these behaviors into their own organizations and do it successfully. And also remember that I would love to hear from you. So if you are going to have some questions along the way, put it in the chat box. Tell me where you're from, and I'll make sure that I get to some of those questions. I see we have some people here watching on Facebook as well. So big greetings to Justin and Richard and Rick. It's nice to have you with us today. So one of the first qualities of mindfulness we're going to talk about here is acceptance. This is the interesting thing about the term acceptance. We are probably watching this live stream because we see ourselves as agents of innovation and maybe transformation. And most of our day is spent inspiring others to embrace change. But we need to first understand how we operate in the world, because if not, it's very difficult to leverage our strengths and inspire others to join us in whatever movement we are leading. So I'll just illustrate what I mean by acceptance. I got a call the other day from a very successful CMO who used to work for a couple of extremely large multi-billion-dollar manufacturing companies. And she said, I'm working now in a mid-market manufacturing firm here in the South. And you know what? I got all the best tools you can imagine, but for some reason, um, I've got 20 years experience, and these darn employees, these team members, simply, they're just not able to implement what I want them to implement. They're resisting, they're moving slowly, and worse yet, the information I need, the critical dependencies I have on the IT department, the sales department, and others, I don't get the information till the last minute. And then I have to go to the CEO and tell him, we're falling short of our goal. Now, this person has a $70 million big bet that she has to deliver on in the next 12 months, $70 million. So this is no joke. She's looking for answers and support. What we found is that she was resisting and not accepting the fact that her team members are all in a state of trauma and grief. And raise your hand and leave me a comment if you feel and have observed that a lot of your coworkers and team members are feeling this heaviness, this sense of grief. And when we grieve, we cannot be our best selves. We operate, we're not firing on all cylinders. Our adrenals are overtaxed, and cortisol levels get all out of whack. I mean, this is a scientific fact. So we stepped back, and when I was coaching her, we took a step back, and I said, how are you being right now? And she said, I am being the same person I've been for 20 years. And I said, well, what if you just accept that what got you here won't get you there? You've got to try on some new approaches to inspire your teams. And she goes, you mean stop being a bulldog? And I said, yeah. Why don't you stop being a bulldog and try something on different? She said, thanks for telling me. So she's much more accepting now of the fact that, there are a lot of people facing grief and stress right now. Yes, we've got a couple of questions here. Also want to welcome Aviva and Catherine to the live stream. Let me talk here about the second quality, and then I'll jump back and see if there are any additional questions. So first step, understanding and being accepting of who you are, accepting of the global pandemic, being accepting that you now have to be a leader who understands public health issues. You have to understand political climate that we're living in. So if you are a marketer or a CEO, just know that now you have to learn new skills, and you have to accept the fact that they're now part of your job. And that's the world we live in. Number two, aliveness. This is the second quality of a mindful leader. And have you ever met somebody where you meet them and you just say, gosh, I want to spend more time with that person. I think they're really cool. They just make me feel better. As one of my dear friends says, that person just gives me a lift. There's something about their skin, their eyes, there's a radiance to them. You want to spend more time with them. And I have to tell you that as I've studied mindfulness and energy and how humans work, what I've learned is that when people are enthusiastic about their lives, there's a notable change in their skin tone and in their eyes and even in their tone of voice. So this is scientifically based. If any of you have not read this book, I highly recommend Dr. David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force. And it is really, it has been a game changer for me in that he dedicated 52 years of his medical career to studying kinesiology and how our thoughts become things. And he actually has a scale of from 0 to 1,000 that looks at how self-awareness gradually leads us up to a higher level of consciousness and enlightenment. And it all begins at level 215 kilohertz, where humans who accept who they are, take responsibility for their actions, and are willing to learn and try new things, that their life really opens up to new possibilities. So being in that state of aliveness, in that level of positivity, really can have medical and psychological impact on you. And so I've met many people who are alive. My reference group, or the people that I work with and that I learn from, also operate at this level of high energy. And I don't mean bouncing off the walls high energy. I mean their thoughts are positive more than they are negative. And they have management tools to keep themselves more often on the positive channel than the doom and gloom channel. I could speak for hours on how to keep yourself, as they say, lights on, but we won't have the time today. But if you want to learn more about it, put it in the chat box, and I'll make sure we add that to our scheduled live streams. Okay, let's see. We've got a LinkedIn user. Let's see what they have to say. Oh, it's so true. We are going through fundamental shifts, and people need empathy to grieve, accept, and shift to a new reality. I couldn't agree with you more. And I wish I knew who that was. This is the fun part of live streaming, is I never really have a perfect live stream. So for some reason, we don't know who that is. And I do honor and respect your comment. There's just allowing for that space of grieving in itself is a way to express, hey, we're human, we're fully alive. Number 3, articulateness. This is about language. Alan Weiss, one of my mentors, says that language controls discussion, discussion controls relationships, and relationships control the business. And that is so true right now. With the volume of content and data coming at us, it is just really a good time to look at your company's vision and your messaging and ask yourselves, are we being as succinct and as clear as we can be? Because if I get to choose, I'd rather be laconic than loquacious. And right now, a lot of very successful companies are doing an excellent job of stepping back because they are aware. And they're saying, we're facing an existential crisis here. We have to not only do things differently because of the pandemic, we also have to be a different organization. Customers are acting very differently than they used to. So let's step back and ask that tough question: is where is the industry going in the next 12 to 16 months? And what are our superpowers that enable us to address those changing market needs? Oh, by the way, thank you to Drew for those questions earlier. That's great. And those comments. And articulateness is just it is in sore shortage right now. It's amazing to me. I've now worked for technology companies, and I've been advising technology companies for more than 2 decades now. And some of them can have the best products and services, but they can't explain how they improve their customers' condition. It's very easy, especially in business-to-business organizations, to really just load up the truck with all your features and benefits, and nobody cares. The only exception is if you are in a field, a scientific or technical field, and you're watching this, and you are bleeding edge, and your only goal is to find those first early adopters of your technology, where they will love to talk about your feeds and speeds. But otherwise, your main question that you need to articulate is, how have I improved, or how will my solution improve my customer's condition? That's the only question you need to be able to answer. Now, I know it sounds simple, but it's not easy. Number 4, let's talk aggregation. A strategic marketing leader, if you are a mindful and strategic marketing leader, you're going to be a person who gets inspiration from a multitude of sources, and you seek patterns across seemingly disparate platforms and places. Your life is enriched with a multitude of, not necessarily a multitude, but a variety of activities, hobbies, and interests. When we hosted our CMO's Leading Innovation Conference last year, pre-pandemic, it was in San Francisco, and one of our participants and speakers was Katya Walsh. Katya Walsh is a chief visionary at a company you probably all recognize named Levi Strauss. And Katya comes to them with a deep understanding of AI and innovation. She previously worked for Vodafone and transformed their organization in the world of digital. She had to hire hundreds and hundreds of data scientists. And when she came to Levi Strauss, one of her gifts is she speaks multiple languages. So her ability to connect with people and really listen deeply allowed her ramp up time at Levi Strauss to be much shorter and to have some instant impact. So she has a passion for travel and a passion for foreign languages, and they've really served her well in her role as a data diva. I also highly recommend you follow Katya Walsh on LinkedIn because she is a visionary. So that's number 4. Number 5, adaptability. So let's talk about adaptability. Raise your hand or place a comment in the chat box if you have found yourself shifting gears more than you ever have in response to this pandemic. I have a client, a $700 million client in the financial services world. They published this beautiful return to work document. Confidentially, I can't share it with you, but it was world class. And, this graphics and video and one of the best documents I've ever seen to get their 2,500 employees back to work safely. And then, of course, the pandemic wave hit again this week. So now they have to do some retrenching on how and when will people return to work. And so, we are in uncharted territory here. I'll also tell you about something that happened to me at a big leadership conference about 22 years ago. I was invited as media to attend a large leadership conference in Long Beach, California. I was at the time a columnist and a freelancer for the San Diego Daily Transcript. So I got a media pass. I was so really excited to go to this conference. It was the keynote was the late Dr. Stephen Covey, the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So I was asking their head of PR, I was calling her like every 3 days, could I please get an interview? Could I please get an interview with Dr. Covey? And she's looking at my press credentials and going, yeah, I don't think so. She said, the LA Times are ahead of you on this one. So, I was really kind of disappointed. I was disappointed to say the least. So, I went to the conference. I'm sitting there. I'm taking notes. This is before we had Evernote. And the PR manager saw, I made sure I met her before the conference. She saw me in the crowd, and there were like 600 people there. She comes running up to me at a break, and she said, Lisa, the LA Times just canceled. They can't make it to the conference. Can you meet with Dr. Covey in 20 minutes? So, there I was, totally unprepared for this interview with Dr. Stephen Covey. So I just paused 3 seconds for dignity. And I said, of course. So I show up, and of course I didn't have my questions. I wasn't prepared. I didn't know what I was going to ask him. And I just looked at him and I said, you know what, Dr. Covey, I've read your books, The 7 Habits. I'm not prepared for this interview. I was fortunate to be thrust into this meeting today. He looks me in the eye. He smiles. He laughs. He says, here, have a chocolate chip cookie. And even to this day, I would rate that as one of my top 3 interviews of my career. And I will never forget how quickly I had to adapt. Another company that really impressed me was when I wrote The Mindful Marketer, I got to meet Barbara Messing, who was the former CMO of TripAdvisor. Barbara then moved on to become CMO and Senior Vice President of Marketing for Walmart. And one of the things that really impressed me about Barbara is she said, we have a lot of young people working for us. And here at TripAdvisor, we're a technology company. When I started the job there, I noticed everybody was constantly staring at their phones. And we weren't able to really deepen our trust and our connection with each other. So she put in some new procedures, new processes in order to help people come to meetings, just to team meetings, and connect with each other and put down the digital devices. So people were required to turn off their phones during their team meetings and use pen and paper if they needed to take notes. And during her tenure at TripAdvisor, she told me that as a result of having some trips she did all kinds of things to change the culture. They took trips to art museums to get inspiration. They brought in photographers to lecture, and they had these digital free meetings. And what happened was, within the time she worked at TripAdvisor, employee engagement scores improved by 20%. So if you're wondering who cares about mindfulness, who cares about being present and non-judgmental, why should I try this on for size? Imagine during the pandemic, when you're physically removed from the people you care about the most, how could your life improve if you just tried on one of these 5 qualities that we talked about today? Just, try it on for a week. Try to be more accepting of where we are as a world right now, and where you are as a leader, and what your frustrations are. Be more alive. Try on some different language or mindsets. Be more articulate. Find and use this time to work with your best advisors, your best consultants, outside objective people, to help you revisit, who are we? What do we stand for? And how do we design a new vision that enlivens our teams, our stakeholders, our customers? This is a really good time to be more articulate. Aggregation. How many of us, again, go find some things that are totally unrelated to your career that give you joy? Knitting, swimming, learning a new skill. Michael Taylor's with us today. I know Michael has been doing a whole set of new courses and studying up on video production. So I mean, people here. Becky is an artist, and I know she's with us today. She gets great inspiration from art. So use this as a mindfulness practice to be able to get new ideas from disparate sources, from areas unrelated to my career, that I can use for storytelling or for connecting to my heart and to others. And then finally, this adaptability, much like Barbara Messing when she was at TripAdvisor. How do I adapt so that I can be more connected, not only to others, but to the people around me? And my invitation for each of you is to do 2 things for the next week, because we're here first 3 Fridays of every month here on LinkedIn Live and Facebook. So I'm going to see if anyone wants to try on a couple of new things this coming week. You've got a little free time over the 4th of July holiday here in the United States. So the first question I'd like you to consider, just again, this is an inquiry. It's non-judgmental, and no one's going to grade your paper. The first question to ask yourself is, of these 5 qualities of mindfulness: acceptance, aliveness, being articulate, aggregation, and adaptability, which one really resonates with me? And the second question I invite you to try on is, what's one action I can take just for a week, just to try it on, that I can use to cultivate that mindful way of thinking and being? And then extra bonus, extra credit for those of you watching, whether you're watching the replay or you're here live, is how will I let Lisa know what I learned? So you can email lisa@lisanorell.com and confidentially let me know what you learned. And I promise I'll get back to you, and I'll share some other experiences or thoughts I might have. So you've been here with me, and I have really enjoyed this time. I see we have one other question from Michael Taylor. How does a business leader work on these qualities while managing an unfolding crisis? Oh my gosh, I love that question. Well, the first thing we have to look at is, I want to go back to a tip or a strategy I learned from reading the seminal works of Peter Drucker, The Effective Executive. One thing you could do right away, Michael, is take a look at, pull out a spreadsheet, create a spreadsheet or just a notepad next to your desk and just for a week in 15-minute increments, track how you're using your time. Look after a week and say, okay, what am I doing here? How am I spending my time that's really serving my vision, that's also helping me make time to address this unfolding crisis in my company? Which ones are advancing that and which ones are sabotaging that? So did I just get sucked into the Facebook vortex for a half an hour? Did I get distracted and jump on YouTube watching a cat video? Is that really helping me manage my crisis? So these are the types of things you can do just for a week to track how you're using your time. And then my best clients, when I'm coaching clients or I'm coaching teams, what I'll say to them is, okay, now you've learned where there are some things you can delegate, drop, or delay. So because some of these things you're going to have to delegate, you're going to have to drop, or you're going to have to delay. It can be very confronting, but it can also be very rewarding. So those are some things, just looking at how am I using my time, because there are only 24 hours in the day and each of us only has so much energy that we can expend. So that might be a first step to get you started. And yes, you know me, I am a cat owner, and yes, cat videos really are cool, but it's even more cool when you have a cat and you are entertained all day long. My cat's name is Big B. And if anyone ever wants to see a fun and happy cat, he is the guy. So we've covered those 5 qualities. Next week, what I'm going to be talking to you about are mindful marketing strategies in the middle of a pandemic. What are some strategies you can use, some additional examples to help you not only deepen your connection with your customers and stakeholders, but also with people in your company, with your VP of sales, with your VP of HR, your CEO. What are some mindful strategies that we can use? I want to also thank you for your comments today. Remember, lisa@lisanorell.com. I'd love to hear those of you that take on the homework assignment. Always fun to hear how that goes. So to all of my viewers here on LinkedIn and Facebook, I want to, if you're here in the United States, please enjoy Independence Weekend. And for everyone around the world, be safe, be mindful, and please wear your mask. We'll see you next Friday, 1:30 Eastern Time. Be well.